Hello all and welcome to the channel all about economic board games. My name's Craig and I'm here today to showcase Ponzi Scheme. What a beautiful game. Now this has come back out in print. It was out of print for a long time and this is the newer version, which I have got a copy of at last. I've been hunting down the previous one for many years, couldn't manage a copy, you know, sky high prices, but this is a whole new look, a whole new art style, and it is brought to us by Bright Eye Games, so I thank them very much for bringing this one out. Now in terms of player count, you are looking at 3 to 5 players. It's going to take you anywhere sort of 60 minutes, sometimes up to 90 minutes, and it's low, just touching medium complexity because there's a little bit of thought process in there, but once you kind of know it, it is a doddle. Now the whole theme of the game is based on actual history where Mr. Ponzi himself had devised a very clever plan to make money without actually starting up a profitable organization. And the whole scheme was generally about offering really good investments with high dividend payouts up to like 40-50%. And it'd take that money off that investor, but he'd actually be paying previous investments he'd acquired, using that money there and then to pay the dividends of other investors. And then once those dividends got bigger, he needed to go out and source more investment. And that is the nature of this game. You've got this kind of, well, what is it, this time rondel here. And as time goes by, you will be having to pay those investments. So it's very clear and concise on the board what you are doing. So number one then, you start with no money, you start with no shares. You will make and determine your own wealth in this game and try to hold on as long as you can before someone else goes bankrupt. And that is the name of the game. Someone needs to go bankrupt in this Ponzi scheme and you need to be left standing with the most victory points, and we'll go through all that. So number one then, this you have to do in the open round with the 1 and the exclamation. So you have to take one of these stocks in one of these 4 different coloured organisations. And as you take one, you're going to be taking from level 1, because it's your first share of that colour, from the funding level of number 1. So let's say we take a green share, boom. We are going to keep this in front of ourselves for everyone to see, face up, that's open information. You will have one of these sort of secret screens here. It depicts nicely the round flow and you will be keeping your money secret. That's important, very important. So you've took the share, you now have to take one of the level 1s because it's your first share. Let's say we go for this one. This share then is going to be giving us 11 money, vital income to be paying off our other dividends. At the bottom here, it says how much of a dividend we're going to have to pay this investor in 5 turns. So we've got 5 turns. No worries, you're thinking, but when that 5th turn is approaching, especially if you have multiple of these, you are going to be paying 10. So you can see the ratio is high. You know, you get 11, but you're paying 10. So you take this. Now you can see these numbered dials. You keep this one here just to showcase, you know, where it started from. Sometimes if people forget and get muddled if they've turned it or not, that's just a reminder. So we place the 5 next to the 5, which basically means you've got 5 turns before you pay that. You then take a card from the top and you can see these are all in sort of numerical order. It doesn't matter which order on the row, but as long as each row has the right denomination. So this is 32, so we're going to be bumping up the 12, bumping up the 15, and that will go at the bottom. So you can see it always goes from the highest numbers up to the lowest numbers. So that is number 1. Everyone does that. Goes around the table. Player 2 does it, player 3 does it, done. Over to number 2 then. So you can either purchase one of these high treasured items, which seem rather expensive, and they are, but it can be vital to your strategy in the last, you know, if you think this game's about to end, that money in your hand is worth nothing. So you might dive in here, buy something, and these points, you know, there's not many points in terms of top scores in this game, you know, maybe 8 points, 10 points, maybe 3 points. You don't quite know how the points are going to go. So to acquire one of these could give you the win. So, you know, you're not likely to get them early. It's more end of the game. But the other thing you can do is actually take this secret wallet and do a trade. So how this works is you have to pick an opponent who has a matching colour share as you. So I've got a green share. Let's say someone else has got a green share and I'm going to secretly put in here $10. So I hand them that. they open it up and go, oh, blimey, $10, Craig, what are you doing? You're killing me here. So they have a choice. Are they going to take that money? Now, if they do, you get to take their share. Great, you've acquired another share, and that's important. I'll go through it shortly. Or if your opponent who's got that money is like, no chance am I giving you this share, they match the amount. So if they put 10 in, they will add another 10 secretly. So now you've got 20 in there. They hand that back to the player. They just quickly check that the amount is in there and it's been doubled, and they have to relinquish one of their shares. So it's kind of backfired on you, really. You wanted to acquire one of theirs for, you know, a reasonable price or maybe a sneaky cheap offer, but actually they've ended up giving you the money back and you have to give them one of your shares. So the shares are constantly swapping here through this trade. And now why that is important is because as you acquire shares, you can see round one, that's where you're going to get shares. You will take the funding. If it's your first share, level 1. If it's your second share, you get to take from level 2. If it's your third share, level 3. But you might be thinking, well, how am I going to get a fourth share? Well, the only way you're going to get 4 shares or more is by trading with your opponents and stealing theirs for the sneaky offers. And that's important because that is the bulk of the victory points in this game. And on here you can see, well, I'll put it on this camera, the number of shares at the end of the game. Let's say you've got 5 shares, is going to give you 15 points at the end. So if you want to be scoring higher than 3 shares, you're going to have to do some trading. Right, that's number 2. Number 3 then, you're going to pass the starting player token on. Boom, just goes clockwise. And they will then take one of these shares of their choice out of the game. So if it's a starting one, it will go back in the box. If it's one, and the starting ones are green, there's 9 of those to begin with. If it's one of these, they put it in the discard pile. And that then brings in a new card. Now the risk here is some of these cards have bear symbols on them. And that brings us over to number 4. So you can see this card here, let's say that, you know, the player decided to take this one off. That goes back in the box and they've revealed this 77. So like normal, we bring up them all in numerical order. So it's going to be like something like that, and the 77's at the bottom. So number 4 then is basically counting how many bears are out there to view. And if it's ever less than the number of players, you're fine, you carry on, you move to step 5. If there is equal or more bears than number of players, so let's say there's 3 bears, you entered a crash, a bear market. And what will happen then is every player will lose one of their majority shareholdings. So if I've got 3 green, I'm just going to lose one of the green. And equally, the time track will move forward or 1. So it kind of reminds you nicely here, 2 or 1 in a crash. So if there is 3 bears out there, you take the bear cards off, you shuffle them into the fun deck along with any discarded cards, and then you replenish it back up. And if it was the rare situation that more bears come out to trigger another market crash, well, that will trigger potentially next round. You don't do it immediately. So number 5 then, you will, as standard, move your clock on 1. So you leave the time track where it is, you leave the investments where they are, because this now shows you are 4 steps away from having to pay this one off. And as the rounds go on, it's going to get closer and closer. And I'll give you a demonstration of that in number 6, which is all about actually paying these dividends off. So let's say, a few rounds have gone by and you've acquired this one here, which equally went on your number 4. Even though that's a 5 and a 4, it depends where the numbers are, because it's about the duration of paying those dividends back. And let's say we took one of these. Now, acquiring these is all about the location of the number of shares you took. So I've just took them, for example, here. So that's going to go on number 3. So as the rounds go by, this time marker is getting closer and closer. And eventually, when the arrow is actually facing one of these, and it's number 6, you have to pay, in this case, it's going to be 28 money. So you have to pay 28 money, boom, you're done. You then move this back around to where number 3 is. So if you can just about see that one, that is now on number 3 again. This is going to move the next round, as you say, you play a lot of the rounds. This time you've got to pay 10 plus the 13, so 23. Now, if you ever skip one, for example, the market happened and you had to move it twice, you would have to pay those investments and they all shuffle along. So then this one is going to be going to number 4, and this one is going to be going to number 5. So they're going to sway around depending on the duration and how many have sort of come together and what you have to pay. But the key is you need the money at the right time to pay those dividends, because if you can't and you go bankrupt, the game ends, you play out that sort of round, and then you see who is left in contention for the win. You will add up any points from your investments based on this accumulator here. You'll also add any points for these purchases you've made. Whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, what a fascinating game. And the fascination of this is with the figuring out of how long your opponents can last in business. How long can they keep paying those dividends off? And you have a rough inclination, but you're not too sure. And where that is stepped up a notch is with this trading, because you can offer an opponent a dirt cheap price, let's say $5, and your opponent's thinking, I don't really want to pay you $5 to acquire one of your shares, because I'm losing cash flow when your opponent can see you've got to pay off some dividends. But let's hypothetically say you do have the cash flow and you give that money. Well, this player who gave the opening bid is like, fantastic, I've got some money back because I needed to pay my dividends off. But the number of shares you have at that particular time is crucial. If someone steals, let's say you got 2 green shares and someone manages to outbid you and you have to, buckle in and take the money and give them one of these shares, that means your funding level when you take the next green share, if you decide to, is now funding 2, which is this level here. And that means you can only acquire, in this case, a 15, a 14 or a 17. You have to choose from that level. They took my share, whereas I was hoping to put my 3rd share down to gain more funds from this row here. And if you haven't, sort of taken into consideration that and the effect of someone stealing one of your shares, you might not have the ability to acquire the funds to pay off your upcoming dividends. And that is just mind-blowing. Add in the fact that you're trying to accumulate some of these if you can, and you need a number of shares. If you are last man standing and it's 2 of you and someone's gone bankrupt, how are you going to actually win this game? You need, a number of shares. You can see 1 share is only 1 point, 2 is 3, 3 is 6, 4 is 10. So if you can get 4 shares with 10 points, you're pretty much, ensuring the win there. So that for me is amazing, that crunchy decision making. How this flows and spins, and sometimes you've got multiple investments in one. You're trying to hedge and diversify when you have to pay these, but sometimes it's out of your control. You're spinning it, a crash has happened, and all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 building up. You're like, wow, I got to pay like 80, 90, 100, 140, 150 in that one turn. I'm like, how am I going to fund that? I need to get to here. So guys, I've never come across anything quite like that in a game. It does play in about 60 to 90 minutes. You're going to have a quicker game as you all get to know it. I've tried 3 players and 4 players, works really nicely. Yet to try 5, but I'd imagine it'd be even more fascinating, especially with this trading. Get this game while it's in print. Last time it was a long time before you could get your hands on it. So rush out, get a copy. It's fairly cheap. And there we are, Ponzi Scheme. Enjoy.